just to give you a little background, the agreements that were executed in the early 80s provided that the city of Cleveland continued to own and operate the major assets of the system. The intakes, the tunnels, the treatment, the transmission, the storage, etc. However, your communities own the small diameter pipes, those that are less than 20 inches in diameter. We perform all the repair and maintenance work on those mains. If it breaks 100 times, we'll go out and fix it 100 times. And we'll send you a letter 100 times saying, you really ought to think about replacing that pipe. But until you do, we're obligated to maintain it. So you're responsible up till now for the capital improvements on those, or the cleaning and lining. Now, under the new agreement, which is an amendment to the existing agreement, you transfer those water mains to the Division of Water. We keep doing all the repair and maintenance, just as we always have, but then we take on that capital investment responsibility. So if you have a water main that needs to be replaced or cleaned and lined, we will take on that responsibility and pay for it. So what happens to the agreement? Right now the agreement was originally a 10-year agreement, and then it automatically renews year to year with a 5-year cancellation clause. The new agreement is for a 20-year period. So you're signing on for 20 years. You have a 5-year cancellation clause. You can't exercise that until 15 years into the agreement. So you're tied up for 20 years. Termination can be by either party. If you do, it reverts back to the original agreement that you have. We continue to operate just as we always have. Furthermore, if you terminate, the assets revert to you. We ask that you repay the depreciated value of any investments we've made in the meantime. Fire hydrant installations initially, and this applies to any new water mains and the like, are your responsibility. Most communities rely on their developers and builders for that initial installation. However, once it's in, then we take on the ownership of the water system and of the fire hydrants. The Joint Economic Development Zone Agreement, which is a companion agreement, is also for a 20-year period. It follows the state JEDS statute, Joint Economic Development Zone statute, and that says both parties bring something to the table. So Cleveland Water brings the responsibility for your water distribution systems and their replacement. You bring maintenance and upkeep and replacement of the other infrastructure, and we both agree to cooperate on a regional economic development basis. Primary features of these JEDS agreements are limitations on real estate tax abatement. You cannot abate for more than 75%, nor for a period greater than 10 years. For most communities, that's not a serious limitation. You cannot use income tax abatements. I think, as Ken mentioned, this is at the core of Mayor Jackson's principles, and since it's the core of the revenue that most communities depend on, I think it's really an important principle. Nevertheless, there are allowable incentives to offer discounted property, low interest loans, tax increment financing, relocation assistance, and the like. And most importantly, these are bilateral agreements. They're between the City of Cleveland and your community. So if you want to try to attract a business from Indiana or Hong Kong or San Antonio, you know, all bets are off. Incentives, no limitations on the incentives. The other thing I think that Ken mentioned is that the real recognition that despite incentives, businesses are going to move. And when a business moves, usually there's a good impact on one community and a bad impact on the other. And I think Mayor Jackson's principles here are you need to cushion the blow. Okay? If a business moves from one place to another, you need to cushion the blow to the community that loses the business. And in the terms of the agreement, that's the losing JEDS party. Okay? So if you get to see these agreements and ask about them, that's how they're designated. Under this agreement, the losing JEDS party would receive 50% of the income tax proceeds that are lost based upon the payroll of that business at the time of the move. And the tax sharing obligations can be reduced should a business backfill into the location, and it would be on a proportionate basis. There's audit rights, and there's also termination clauses in this agreement as well.
Chris, just a quick question.
Yes.
Would the limit on real estate tax abatement be true for even if you've got a business, say in Parma, that wants to stay in Parma but relocate to another area of Parma?
Can you help me with that one?
If we're in the process, well, we actually just use tax abatement. I'm talking about the animal clinic, Chuck. You know, something like that.
The purpose of our economic development agreements is to prevent suburbs from, well, originally we said suburbs and Cleveland from bidding against each other. When we first expressed the concept to the Mayors and Managers Association, the Mayors and Managers leadership said, better to crawl before you walk. Focus in your agreements in just doing it between Cleveland and the suburb. So what the agreement provides is if you use over 75% tax abatement to entice a company to move from Cleveland to Parma, that's foul play. But I hope our language says, because it is the intent, that if a company is already in Parma and has decided or is considering moving to another location in Parma, and you decide to assist that move by going over 75%, I would regard that as no harm, no foul. And I believe our agreements provide that.
That's exactly right.